Okay.
Is there nobody left in the room?
Sandra, Rebecca,
Is it the first time you've noticed?
Mark.
Bernie!
It's called the slow, steady drain that he's now contributing to. Okay, well, there's drinking to be done in an hour, so we're going to get this show on the road. We are here to bid a fond farewell to Bruce Newman, writer extraordinaire who's been with us at the Mercury News for the past 16 years. First as a movie critic, a man who'd never criticized films before, but stepped into the role.
Oh, he'd criticize.
Oh, yeah. We didn't realize he was more just a critic of life until he started writing his, what do we call them, takeouts? And you became a takeout writer?
I never liked that term.
Yeah. Makes you feel like you're covering like fast food?
Yes.
And then,
Yarns.
so he wrote his yarns, and of course, eventually, as happens, he decided it's time to hang it up. But, okay, so to start this off, I want everyone to know kind of like why we, are going to miss Bruce's work here. So I pulled out a few choice things that he wrote, starting with his review of the film Geely from 2003. Now, and this is like we talk about writing for print. This was meant to be read in a newspaper, not spoken, so it's not going to kind of work because the whole point was that this movie Geely, starring Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, looks like it should be called Jiggly, but it's pronounced Geely, and he points that out. And then later he says the bigger problem is that Geely is a really, spelled R-I-G-L-I, really bad movie. It's a touchy, figly story of a mobster with a heart of gold. Most of the movie's anatomical references are to baser elements mined mostly below the belt by writer-director Martin Brest. With this movie, the way Hollywood will now pronounce his name is Mud. Geely is what might happen if The Sopranos met Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, except it would still star Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck. A few years later, he was off the movie beat, and he was writing about a man named Tony Lima, who had painted murals at San Jose Municipal Stadium. And Bruce called him the Michelangelo of Municipal Stadium, I believe. I don't know. When San Jose's Municipal Stadium turns 70 next year, about the only part of the ballpark that won't bear the mark of Tony Lima's hand is the grass of the baseball diamond itself. Lima painted the murals and signs that cover the concourses, the portals leading to the field, and even the concession stands. The old building has more coats of paint on its walls than a rent-controlled apartment. And finally, Bruce is the man who wrote our obit when Steve Jobs died. And it was another great example of why we went to him for these things. Steve Jobs, who sparked a revolution in the technology industry and then presided over it as Silicon Valley's radiant Sun King, died Wednesday. The incandescent center of a tech universe around which all other planets revolved, Jobs had a genius for stylish design and a boyish sense of what was cool. He was 56 when he died, ahead of his time to the very end. Mike, do you have any?
Well, Sal and I didn't coordinate well, so I did the exact same thing he did. But I had a little bit more. I actually did a Google search for Bruce Newman weather story.
Always remember how this went. Steve Jobs of it. Weather story.
0.63 seconds. There were 3.66 million. So we'll read that later. This came up oddly enough. It was an obit for a Bruce L. Newman of Teleco Plains somewhere. I don't know if you know this one. But this also came up. This is another thing Bruce did very well. Pissed off readers with the most innocuous stories. This I just found on the internet. Have you seen this, Bruce?
Bruce Newman is a jerk? No,
Something you wrote in 2009 about marriage, a speech and debate coach that got him this letter. Do you remember that one?
It was a weekend assignment, yes.
Right.
David Early would probably.
Yeah,
my
don't start
editor.
talking about, and don't mention dodgeball, right?
No,
Oh
God,
my
don't
God.
mention dodgeball.
Well, there's too much good stuff here, but I did print out other things of Bruce's, including this this gas story, because that was another one that you did. Listen to this one. This is the lead of a gas story from Bruce Newman. It's a small world after all, as Bay Area motorists were reminded after the settlement of a 16-day strike by Norwegian oil workers caused by global prices to drop sharply Tuesday, promising further relief at the pump. How the hell did that?
How did it ever get in the paper? Huh?
But I have
He would
printed out-
never have used something like relief at the pump. I mean, much too cliche.
That was Frankel's
That was,
idea.
But this is, Bruce, we're going to take this to the bar later. This is every weather story that you've written, every lead, just the leads. And
Just the leads.
they're absolutely delightful. I will say one thing that you mentioned how he spelled Jiggly, the guys. You did something that I cannot tell you how often it wasn't cringing actually, it was laughing. I would have these delightful moments reading his raw copy. And there was one occasion recently where you wrote about the L in Super Bowl. And you introduced somebody who was with the NFL, and his name had a couple of L's in it. But since L was no longer, it just didn't sound right. Super Bowl L, they changed it to Super Bowl 50. They had to get rid of the L. So you took the L out of every occasion of this guy's name and put an asterisk. And that made me laugh so hard. It was one of the great joys, and also, laughing and crying while editing you and interacting with you.
A lot of crying.
A lot of crying. But there was
all involved.
I will just say, this story was really what it's all about with you. This is one of your last stories here, and it's absolutely fabulous if anybody has read it. And it shows you a writer who is so in the zone on what's going on in his life now. And we are all so envious of somebody who, you're going to do something that is unbelievably valuable. We've all had 3-year-olds before. Just all
How
I
many
can say
people
is,
who've had 3-year-olds are envious of Bruce? just a show of hands here.
How many people have had 3-year-olds at age 60?
Tony Randall.
but I will pass it on to somebody else now. But thank you, Bruce.
What's his name?
Well, I'll just, go ahead. I'll just add that what I've loved so much about your writing that I think separates you from just everybody is the brilliance it takes to have such wit in your stories. And my girlfriends, and I've told you this before, but for years, especially when you were writing your film reviews, they would be constant topics of conversations at our cocktail parties, and people would just remember one-liners out of your stories over and over. And one of them that we still joke about today is, the movie was like 300 or some Spartacus like something or other, and my girlfriends still talk about throngs of thongs. So there's good writers, and then there's the wit and the brilliance that's needed to be funny in print, and I'm going to miss that, and this paper's really going to miss it tremendously. So thank you for all you brought.
I remember Bruce came to me and said he was so happy because he had written one of his first weather stories. He came to me and said, Frankel said his wife loved my weather story. He was so happy, and I was like, what? What's the matter? He said, Frankel's wife loves your weather stories. You're going to be writing weather stories ass from now on. No, she just, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. And it turned out I was right. And that thong line, he had a great editor. That's all I want to say. That was terrible. That was no way in my line.
Nice try.
Karen Casto was my editor on that. She had to go home with the cold.
Anyway, working with Bruce was great fun. Always.
Not always.
Always.
Memory can be very selective.
Should we be passing?
Should
on
I
the
say something?
page?
No, I'm gonna say something first, then you can say something.
Okay.
And then
He's got pretty good at this routine. Bert goes and then.
I remember when the notice went out that we hired Bruce Newman, because this rarely happens but I had actually heard of Bruce Newman. I've been a huge fan of Sports Illustrated for years and years. So Bruce was, of course, one of my favorite writers, because he was one of the best writers Sports Illustrated had for the 20 years you were there.
Yes.
I was like, holy shit, we hired Bruce Newman? And then I read that we hired him to be a movie reviewer. And I was like, oh, what a waste. But we fixed that later. No, Bruce wrote beautiful movie reviews. However, there was more fun to be had when we moved him to, when Bruce was moved to Metro. And that was actually, moving Bruce to Metro was one of the things that Dave Butler did when he was here that Dave was proudest of, because Dave was a huge Bruce Newman fan. Bruce's writing made Dave very happy, made him laugh out loud, and those of you who know Dave, as we all did, know that that wasn't something that was happening all the time. So if something made Dave happy, then we just went with it. Working with Bruce was mostly a pleasure. I'm not gonna lie like David Early and say that it was always a pleasure. One of the things that I do remember about Bruce, and I just want to make clear before I say this that I don't want any other reporter to think that they can have this deal, but we had to institute the copy desk is not allowed to fuck with Bruce. Because, as Bruce well remembers, there was a time when a lot of really beautiful writing was getting completely lame by people who didn't have the proper appreciation for that we thought they ought to have for Bruce's wonderful prose. I, in fact, remember, I'm not proud of this, but it was in a good cause. I remember actually bringing a copy editor to tears when she had done something to Bruce's copy that she shouldn't have done, certainly without acknowledging that she had done it. And in fact, it was, he's not here, but it was Chris Walker's deep appreciation for Bruce's writing that was one of the things that made us fall in love with Chris and decide that we should figure out some way to have him around San Jose a little more, because he clearly was a man of taste. A man of taste. Bruce is just, I think, the best stylist I've ever had the privilege of working with, or probably ever will have the privilege of working with, because I just don't think there are many better anywhere. And you know, I remember there was Bruce actually threatened to retire once before to me. And I managed to talk him out of it. And I remember going home that night and saying, there's just no way that we're going to be a better newspaper after Bruce Newman goes, and we need to try to forestall this as long as we possibly can. But when Bruce came to me a few weeks ago and said he was ready, I said, think about it for a week, and if you're still ready, then we'll move ahead. And he thought about it for a week. He was, and as has been observed here, Bruce's life is different now. He's got some other priorities and some wonderful priorities. I hope that Bruce figures out a way to continue to write in and among the challenges of Nicole, the wondrous and fabulous and incredibly rewarding challenges that you're already having and will continue to have from your daughter, because the world is just going to be a happier, more joyful place if your prose is in it.
Thank you.
Now, before you start talking, we've got Paige, right? Do we do the page now?
No, I think he's
What about the
talks
gifts?
first.
Do we do the gifts now?
He talks
way out
first.
of order.
They should put me in charge.
Isn't
of
Bruce
these
going to
things.
talk?
Yes. But first, I want to know if Bruce is going to show up in Providence in a couple of weeks. After his retirement.
I wrote down a few things because I'm not good at extemporaneous